Well, if you love playing with sand so much, then play here forever, you idiot, the sand says. The person standing says, so basically, this is what it means. Forced relocation from the castle of the White Desert to the desert. That alone was enough to make me realize that my current life was over. Let's see what happened 3 years ago in the Maghreb Empire. Prince Horus was getting congratulated on turning 12. He thanked the people very much. At 12 years old, that means he can finally find out about that, right? The maid asks the head maid. Magic affinity attribute. Among the 5 sitting, Prince Horus has the highest magic power. So surely his affinity must be a strong element like fire. No, Prince Horus is definitely wind, so lactic-wielding magic. I hope it's water, so pretty, and it suits him, I wonder. But wasn't Prince Horus's background kind of? The other maid stopped her from saying that, saying, don't say such things on a celebratory day like this. Even Horus himself is not footing for anything, but when he came across the machine that tells his attribute, it was gradually announced as sand. Hearing this, everyone around him who were congratulating him turned dead silent. He looked around and thought, what's with their reaction? Sand is a single-level element. You can't use any other type of magic, even with high magical power. A concubine's child is still a concubine's child. These were the grooves, or rather, the people saying, isn't he just useless? He had tears in his eyes flowing. Don't come near me, you inferior race, a disgrace to the royal family. As the prince of the Maghreb Empire, my life essentially ended that day. Father was the one to do it, a disgrace to the family, a concubine's child, single sand affinity. He was exiled. Now, looking in the sand, the desert, would things have been different if my affinity wasn't sand? And though sand magic can be amazing, he clenched his own chest, thinking and gritting his teeth. This burnt message must be from my third brother. I tried so hard, thinking I might be useful someday, too, and she's the third child. I am the... That joke, even if I give up, nothing will change. I will live here in this desert. That's right, it's the perfect place for a sand prince that he has strengthened his mind, thinking, all right, first find water. He gently pressed his hand in the sand and used sand sense. Found it. Water reaction. As he used his sand magic, he made ripples in the desert and used it as a wave to travel. Hada, they probably thought, smiling. Me to the desert was a punishment, but for me, the desert is the best place in the world, as this is where a person with gradual sand magic is invincible. He used sand whirl and made a whirlpool, which gradually made its way to the surface, and he could see it. It was in front of his eyes. What, you may ask? It was water. Got water. Now I need a place to live. He used sand magic and created something called the sandcastle. Gradually, the blocks from the sand created a massively gigantic castle. Not bad. Looking good, he thinks to himself, but the interior is too plain. Maybe I can modify the sandcastle's spin to build it. Yeah. After all, a castle needs beautiful decorations, right? He gradually added the lobby, guest rooms, kitchen, and throne room, though maybe that was unnecessary. I will even make myself a private room, unsteady. It's the beginning of my life in the desert, but being alone is lonely, so I will make a golem to protect me. I am counting on him. She sighs on his bed, thinking, now that I have food and plants near water, I want glasses for windows too, and then I want fur as well, so let's go look for anything useful. He uses his sand sense once more and scent ripples throughout the entire desert, trying to sense something. He sensed that someone has collapsed and is surrounded by multiple things. This could be bad. With that, he rushed out of his castle and ran towards that person with his sand wave. He was there in an instant. He still had to hurry, for he saw someone was surrounded by monsters. These were goblins, and this someone was a girl protected by her camel. The goblins started to attack the camel and rushed toward it. Here comes our main character, who just arrived and took out his sand spear, made it in an instant, and attacked all of them at once, piercing through them. All of them were neutralized in a second. The camel was totally confused. The main character says, "Good, I just made it in time." We see that it looks like the goblins couldn't be pierced by the sandalwood and were just gushed into the sand, came out, and surrounded him. He thinks, a distraction. In that case, sand magic. He He used a sandstone in front of them. With this, the goblins tried to attack the camel, leaving him all alone. The main character used sand magic, sand ring, and a sliding blade-type sand object came in front. With this, the goblins were cut in half and neutralized. After all of that happened, he came near the person and the camel, saying, "Are you okay?" It looks like the camel trusted the main character and let him go near the person. The main character removed the rag, or came over this girl, saying, "Excuse me." He looked at her, and it was a beautiful meeting. Seeing her, he thinks she's beautiful, but then had the thought that this isn't the time to stare. He picked her up and asked the camel, "Is it okay if I help you?" "I will help you. Let's move first." The camel followed him, and he says, "Don't worry, this is just a type of magic." As riding on the wave, they came to the main character's castle, and the camel was flabbergasted. This was the first time, maybe, that a camel was asked to come inside a castle. Anyway, in the castle on the bed, the girl was lying there, and the main character, looking at her, thought, "At this rate, I can't expect her to recover. I need something nutritious and easy to eat." He asked the girl to wait here a bit and then used his sand sense, thinking, "No good, I think it's far. Anything very far in my sand territory." He found some biological reactions, a few of them at once. "Let's check it out," he thinks to himself as he went there, traveling afar. He sees that it's black ants as well as white ants. With the sand spear in action, the main character neutralized the black ants in an instant. There were other ants, accomplices of the black ants, which fled as soon as he arrived. The main character thinks, is there a conflict among the desert ants? We see the white ants coming towards him, trying to talk to him in their own language, thanking him. The main character senses it and says, "You are welcome." With that, the ants gave him something as gratitude. He asked, "Are you giving me this?" He couldn't understand what it was, thinking of ant liquid wrapped in a thin membrane, and it smells sweet. "This is ant honey." With that, he thanked the ants and gave them a goodbye. Now, at his castle, he poured the liquid, the honey, in the girl's mouth little by little. Her throat suddenly moved. She drank it. "It's okay. I will save her." He has made up his mind. It looks like he slept there, and the night passed. With that, when he woke up, the girl was staring at him. He was totally surprised by her beauty. She asked, "Are you okay?" She says, "Thank you for saving me. I wish I could repay you somehow." He says, "It's okay, really, no need for that. I'm just glad you have recovered, but I know I might be asking too much, but yeah." The girl asked him, would I stay here with you?" With a blush on her face, she asked this to the main character, who is totally not expecting any of this, and says, "Huh?" She asks the main character, "Would you please let me stay here? I will do anything, please." The main character thinks about her words, anything, but then he slapped himself. She couldn't understand why he did that, but we all know. Anyway, he asked her, "May I know your story?" She introduced herself as Iris and introduced the camel as her child named Rake, even though it's camel. "Thank you very much for saving both of us." "Oh, it's nothing." He introduces himself. "I am Horace. Nice to meet you." He asked her, "So why did you collapse in the desert?" She, sitting on the bed, says, "Well, I can't share the details, but I was actually driven out of my country." The main character slipped out, just like me. Hearing these words, she says, "You too, Horace?" He says, "Yeah, at first I didn't know what to do, but my sand attribute came in handy. In the desert, there is no shortage of sand. It's the most powerful here." She says, "A sand attribute? You know, that is a pretty rare element." As she touched the bed, she noticed something. She looked around the whole castle and then came out of the room and looked around even more. She says, "Even the doors and the walls are all sand. Even the pillars are crafted so intimately and perfectly." She was speechless, thinking, "Horace, you build all this by yourself?" The main character couldn't understand anything and says, "Yes." She says, "Is that why you were exiled from your country?" He says, "Yeah, because it's sand magic that only works with sand, so they said that it is completely useless." She made a noise with her mouth as if spitting on that comment and says, "I am angry." The main character couldn't understand anything, saying, "I'm sorry." "Well," she says, "you built such an amazing castle. And you even saved a complete stranger like me. And just because it's a sand attribute, you were exiled? That is beautiful. She, who looked determined, placed her hands and grabbed the main character's hands, saying, Horus. He says, yes. She says, let's build it together, the greatest kingdom that one has ever seen. The main character looked into her eyes and says, together? She totally reacted and says, when I say together, I didn't mean it like that. Not in any special way or anything. I just, I want to repay you, and I don't have anywhere else to go. She blushingly says, it's not like I have any alternative motives or anything like that. Also, she started stammering. The main character smiled at her and then asked for her hand, saying, Iris, we are both people who have nowhere to go. Let's help each other out. She looked at him blushingly and then placed her hand in his hand, saying, yes. Now that's decided, let's move right away. Let's go, Iris. She asked where. We see him waving through the sand, and this made her almost go bonkers. They were so fast. She asked, what is this magic, while the camel was enjoying it. The main character says, it is Sandwave. It makes the sand ripples and lets you move fast and fast. She says, can we slow down a bit, The main character stopped in front of an oasis and says, let's grab a few plants from here. It's an oasis. She says, but how did you know where this was? He says, I used a sand-based magic that locates objects through reflexes that sound. She says, a precision spell that transmits vibration clearly. She was totally surprised. Then he used his sand spear to pierce through a coconut and let it fall onto the ground. As it falls, he picked it up, saying, now let's do some hunting and bring back some meat and fur. Even though she was totally speechless, back at the castle, he has gathered all the food up from detection and movement to hunting with sand magic. It could do so much. Let's remove the air from meat preservation, nuts, and act near the water. She looked towards him doing all of this with just one attribute, thinking, and we can even handle storage and transportation. As that all happened, we see them now behind the castle. The main character says, for now, I have planted the cactus, but it doesn't feel very oasis-like. Well, we will just have to be patient. But then she had an idea. She says, Horus, leave it to me. He couldn't understand, but then she used life magic, growth acceleration. With that, the little sprout of a coconut tree turned into a sapling and then into an ardent plant. She says, fulfill your leaves. The sunlight is yours to take. And suddenly, the little saplings sprouted into full-fledged trees with coconuts on them. The main character looked towards it, thinking, amazing, this is her magic. Now the dead oasis now looks filled with life. She has that smile and blush in her eyes as she says, the oasis is complete. He abruptly made a hand-knocking gesture with her, saying, you are amazing, Iris. Then he realized what he just did, and she says, sorry, Horus, do you mind if I take a quick bath? The main character says, oh, yeah, of course. The main character thinks, yeah, we have been outside all day. She probably wants to wash off the sweat. Guess I will wait at the entrance. Do I smell sweat too? As she was hiding behind the tree, she sighs a deep breath, saying, this should be fine. It happened really fast. As a matter of pride, I should at least clean myself up. I can't let the person who saved me think I stink. She asked Rake, the camel, if she does smell bad. Rake was speechless, but then made some sticky face as a reply. I am telling you, this is a prudent camel. Anyway, she also asked what made that face. She plunged into the oasis and took a bath in it, thinking, it feels so cold and so good. We see a little bit of fan service here and there by the author. She cleaned every part of her body and then asked Rake, what should I do to repay Horus? What will make a boy happy? Is it okay for me to even ask then? Anyway, we see her going back into the water, relieving all her stress, thinking he saved my life, so I have to repay him big time. On the other hand, the main character cannot take this anymore. Don't let yourself think wicked thoughts. This and that beautiful girl mid-bath, something like he saved me, so maybe even a naked bond. Thinking this, he's getting totally flustered. But then he heard a scream of hers and rushed towards her. He says, Iris, what happened? She says, Horace, it's the honey ants are here. But both of them then realize what has happened, and we see her blushy face and scared smile. The main character covered his eyes, saying, I didn't see anything but those big. He stopped in between. She says, they seem kind of packed, the ants. I was just bathing when they showed up. We see she's all covered. The main character says, I was a bit startled as such, I see. We see the ants trying to say something to the main character, getting in front of him, and seeing this and that. The main character couldn't understand it to the end. I can't understand you. She says, I think they want us to come with them. After the ant heard this, it nodded its neck. The main character says, really? He thinks, if we're going to live here either way, it might be best to go with that. He says, all right, let's go. As they travel with the main character's super speed wave, it looked like they have reached some kind of a castle made of earth, an ant nest. The ant wants them to follow into the nest. As the main character followed it, we see the hollow, cave-like structure. It's so spacious, he thinks. The huge ant nest was outside the range of my sand detection. There are a lot of rooms as well. He looked towards an ant that didn't have a leg, thinking an injured ant. We see the other ant making some noise and made them follow into a grand hall, big enough space like that of the hall in the empires. We see the ant pointing towards someone, and someone was sitting on a mud chair. This person says, thank you for coming all this way. I am the overseer of this place, the queen of the honey ants. Pleased to meet you. Seeing the giant humanoid ant queen, both of them looked toward each other. The ant just spoke. He introduced himself as Horace, and she says, my name is Iris. As the conversation went on, we see the scene has shifted to a desert, and the main character sliding through his sand wave. The ant queen says, Lord Horace, we are grateful that you have accepted our request, but are you sure it was okay? It looks like he has cooperated with the ants. He says, of course, it's an endless desert. We have to help each other. Well, a few minutes ago, when the ant queen asked for him to be their escort, she says, I will directly meet with the king of the iron ants and attempt to resolve the situation. Honey ants are bad at combat, so if things stay like this, eventually we will lose. She asked, Lord Horace, please lend us the power with which you have repelled the iron ants. The main character thought for a moment. The honey ant side needed improvement in their lacking strength and fighting. We have only just come to the desert, so it's a way to regulate the surrounding situation. Then he says, how about we establish a transaction relationship? On our side, it's the provision of magic combat and enhancement, and on your side, it's the honey. The ant queen, hearing this, says, it's a great proposal. I understand, and let's do that. The main character says, then shall we head there immediately? The ant queen was quite surprised. Now in the present, she asks Iris to think a single sand attribute is this powerful. It's beyond imagination. Iris says, Horace's magic is amazing. The movement created for combat also allows no one to follow. The ant queen replied, to think we would get cooperation from someone like that. The main character says, we are also being helped, so it's mutual, you know. It looks like they have suddenly spotted something. He says, is that it? It's like a mountain. This iron ant nest looks more like a castle. We see at the entrance, there were 2 black ants guarding it, and the main character approached both of them. As he was going to attack both of them, the queen ant says, Lord Horace, you should only make them faint, but please do not kill anyone. The main character used his great sand wave, and it was like a tsunami in the sand desert. With that, the ants were swiftly neutralized as he took a place on the ground. He says then, he used his sand bind to capture the rest of the ants outside and bind them to the ground for centralization. This should be enough, he says. Even so, we observe them getting into this nest. The main character taps the walls, thinking it's so wide and sturdy. I wonder what they are using. The queen ant says it's iron sand. She says, because they established their dwelling in land rich with iron sand. The main character thinks, though it's called iron sand, it's just sand. If I can control it, I would like to help the king and get a little share with me. He touched the walls of the castle, and with that, it started shaking. Seeing this, everyone was flabbergasted. Iris says, amazing, Horace, the walls are like living things. The queen says, to think that you can even control that. The main character says, with this, I can restrain the ants without worrying about the remaining sand. He swiftly neutralized all the ants and then got in deeper. It's getting wider, which means that this is the main nest. The main character spotted something as someone says, I am surprised the queen herself came all this way here, and she even brought people with her. This was none other than the king ant. For some reason, he resembles Beer from Solo Leveling. The queen ant says, King, I came to talk to you today. He says, talk? I do not need such a thing. She says, why? There should be room for discussion between us. We see the ant king getting up, saying, you will die, you're going to die. We see the king was out of his mind, stumbling and mumbling things like, I will kill you, this and that. And seeing him, everyone was terrified. After that, he announced death for everyone there and then jumped towards the main character, attacking him with his spear. The main character instructed everyone to not move and use his iron sand binding to bind up the king ant with his own sand. The queen ant says, Lord Horus, the king is not normally like this. The main character used his sand sense over it and realized that there is another life reaction in the king's head. Iris picked it up quickly. A parasite demon, right? Can't we do something about it with life magic? The main character says, for now, I am preparing to tear the demon off the king for his recovery. She also agreed with this plan. He thinks to himself, without getting too close to the parasite demon and without harming the king, I need to concentrate quite a bit and perform precise sand control. So then, he made a golem. The sturdy golem went to attack the king ant, who was now freed. It was given the command to hold him down, but we see the ant king, in an instant, disrupted the golem into pieces with his spear. Iris, as well as the queen ant, were in awe. Thinking this, the main character says, if it has broken, I will just make it again and reform the golem into an even bigger form with the help of iron sand. He then enticed the ant king and rushed towards it as the golem holds it down. The main character got right in front of its face and now started to extract the parasite demon that is controlling it. Keep holding it down like that, he says. He thinks, a little at a time, and I have to be careful with that. He extracted the little demon. As soon as that happened, it tried to jump and get out of the way, but the main character spotted it and used his sand to neutralize it. I don't blame you, but I can't let you. Then he rushed towards Iris, asking, how is the king doing? She says he's safe. The consumption of energy is intense, but I believe he will open his eyes soon. He was on the lap of the ant queen as she says, Lord Horus, I am deeply grateful that you helped us. He says, don't be so formal. I did what was necessary as a good neighbor and trading partner. We see that the black and iron ant king, as soon as he opens his eyes, saw Iris and was on his guard, saying, humans, so you came to bring down this palace. But the ant queen says to him, it was the person who helped you. He was quite confused. Then she explained all the circumstances. We see him saying, unconsciousness for me to have been in such a demon state. Queen, I have caused you great inconvenience this time. And Lord Horus, I thank you very much. If I am to prepare apologies and gifts, but he says, we do not need anything. He replied, Horus-sama, no, it's not good. I have to be responsible as a king. That's why I must fulfill it. The main character rose up his hands, saying, how about we discuss things forward in my castle for now? As they arrived, we see their reaction. Lord Horus was the lord of a country, wasn't he? From what I have heard from the ants, it's beautiful. Oh my, isn't that majestic, queen? Look at these decorations. This scale alone shows how amazing his skills are. The main character was feeling quite embarrassed, thinking, somehow it feels like it's shining. We see them inside the castle, sitting on a large table. The main character says, then from my side, I would like to propose something to the two of you. The king asked, Lord Horus, what do you do? He thought about it, saying, it's somehow hard to talk about, isn't it? So main character asked, were their names? It looks like both of them do not have a name. So the main character says, is that so, king and queen? Since you don't have a name, it feels a bit unfamiliar. Both of them were speechless as they argued between each other, and the main character thought, what are they whispering? It looks like they have come to a decision in which they want the main character to give them names. Even the king of the ants was quite pleased if he did so. He was quite confused about the names, then says, "Then, while it's presumptuous of me, how about Ein for the king and El for the queen? I think it suits you, but the last decision is yours." We see both of them saying, "Wonderful, then I am El, and I am Ein. I shall be your treasure for life." With that, we see some kind of transformation took place, and what came next was a majestic man, and for some reason, a beautiful naked woman. Seeing this, both the main character and Iris freaked out. We see the queen saying, "It's a success," and the king saying, "Yes, for now. Could you please put on some clothes?" We see her taking the name of the main character, saying, "We belong to you." The main character freaked out hearing all of this, and we observed both of them proclaiming the main character as their king and saying, "Please allow us to become your kin." The main character had a nosebleed, seeing El naked. Human bodies really are shaped in such a mysterious way. Anyway, we see him saying, "Wait a minute, I got a lot of questions, but first, men need some clothes." That's right, she can't be naked like this. She couldn't understand anything and says, "But first, we need to do something about Horisama's nosebleed." Iris says, "At least cover your front for now," screaming at her. We see her trying to cover herself with a little towel, but it did not help much. Will this do for now? But the main character still had a nosebleed, and Iris tried to shove his face, not letting him see her. He says, "I will just make a robe out of sand." We observe the king walking with the main character, saying, "So that's how he ended up taking human forms, just like the legend says." The main character didn't know anything. He says, "When a magical being is given a name by a human, it forms a contract. We only expected it to become familiar at best, but to think we actually turned human, completely unexpected." He says, "Still, this is what you call a great fortune. I will serve you loyally until this body turns into dust and fades away." The main character says, "Ein, but isn't it quite tough to come here all the way from your home?" She pointed towards somewhere, saying, "No need to worry. Behold, we have relocated." It looks like the whole of the Iron Ant colony, the whole structure, has somehow shifted towards the main character's castle. Seeing this, he was flabbergasted, saying, "When did this happen?" The king says, "You must know, as your kin, we must always be by your side no matter what." And behold, El, it looks like she is with her honey ants near the oasis, busy making clothes. I believe she is unraveling leaves into threads and weaving them. She could do all that. We see Iris calling the main character, taking his name. "King, I could use your help with something, if it is okay." He came down near the oasis, and she says, "I was thinking, what if we turn this area into a farmland?" The main character says, "Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but since it's sand, it will drain too well for the crops to grow." Iris says, "Right, it won't work like this, so I want to make soil, something healthy for the crops. What do you think?" He says, "Let us go and gather what we need." She was blushing and says, "Yes." We see them traveling afar, and now they are hiding from a big lion-type monster. The main character says, "Though we came all this way, isn't that a monster? Leave this to me." The Ant King says, "Not only our appearance, but our strength has also changed." The main character asked, "Will you be okay?" He says, "Of course I will be. I also have this treasured spear." With that, we see him facing the magical monster head-on, a beast against a beast, and with the attacks with the spear, we see him saying, "Pathetic, this level is no challenge at all." With that, he imposed the beast and neutralized it swiftly, then made a pose and says, "Looks like I've gotten stronger than I thought." The main character says, "That was amazing, Ein." He says, "I am honored by your praise." The main character asked, "What kind of magic did you just use now?" But he says, "That was merely a thrust with magic power infused into my spear. I cannot use spells." The main character says, "You took down a magic beast with just a magical thrust?" He says, "It's all thanks to you, my lord." We observe a few ravens were observing all of this from above, and it looks like Elle saw them. For some reason, she still hasn't worn anything and says, "They are marking the meat. I will intimidate them a bit." With that, She intimidated the ravens, and they were out of the picture. The main character says, "El, was that light magic just now?" She says, "Yes, I was able to use it after evolving from being given a name." Light magic is supposed to be pretty rare, right? The main character was kind of jealous. She says, "My power is yours, my lord. Use me whenever you wish." He got another nosebleed because of this, and Iris just made a face. She thinks the fact she means nothing by it somehow makes it even worse. Anyway, her attention was spiked towards somewhere as she makes sure to get the main character as well as everyone there's attention over there. It was sorghum, a growing wild environmental crop. It's a cereal grain from the grass family. It is versatile and hardy. She says, and it's white sorghum. It's nutritious and tastes great. Finding it in the desert is such a stroke of luck. Let's harvest a bit. We will also gather dried plants to use as materials for the field. The main character says, "Iris, you are really knowledgeable about plants. That's a big help." She says, "Haha, leave it to me." At the palace of the main character, we see her saying, "Good crops come from good soil. Let us make compost first." The main character says, "Here's the sandbag you asked for, Iris." She says, "Thank you." We see Elle saying, "Iris-sama, I have brought out all the materials. First, the shredded palm leaves from when we made threads, dried sorghum, a bit of sand and water, and then add the leftover dates from when the honey ants made nectar and mix. Use life magic to speed up the fermentation process. Drain the fermented liquid, then add dried magic bee stung and finely ground palm bark. Mix and accelerate fermentation again, then drain it once more." Looks like it turned out well. Everyone was impressed there. The Ant Queen thinks, "I thought the smell would kill me midway. It's all nice and crumbly." "All right, Horace, now it's your turn." He says, "Leave it to me. I will shape the compost into rows and use sand magic, then line them up to farm. Not completely, it might not look like much now, but we will expand it later. The soil will get better, and it will be a great field." We observe the Ant King saying, "Our surroundings keep improving." The main character says, "It's all thanks to you and all of us. Our castle, our oasis, our field, and Einel's base, everything is here." He gave them a heartfelt thanks. Seeing that, Iris was embarrassed, saying, "Not quite on Horace's level of building a castle by hand, but it's an honor." That said, "Next we should build that." The Ant King says, the main character couldn't understand, but he explains, "A tower, my lord. The view here is so nice, but there is no watchtower. Indeed, a castle is on a hill, but the west and north sides where the fields are have higher grounds and dunes, so people could look down on the castle, which could be troublesome later on." He says, "Then, yeah, we might need a tower. Of course, it will protect you, so it's not urgent, but still." The main character says, "All right then, sand magic, sand tower." He used a large enough spell and then created a tower in an instant. Seeing this, everyone was mind-boggled, saying, "Whoa." The main character says, "Let's climb it all together." On the top floor of the tower, they view the stargazing desert from there. "It's so beautiful." "Yes, Iris, you look very beautiful." And the main character was staring, his eyes glittering. On the other hand, the camel was dancing, and the king of ants says, "Looks like you are having quite fun, Rake." While Elle was careful for him, the main character thinks, "I thought we'd be soaked in the mood, basking in our sense of accomplishment, but this feels like us too, I guess." He took the name of Rake, saying, "If you keep doing dangerous stuff like this." And in the next second, it looked like the prudent camel is finally getting kidnapped by the big ravens. And this made Iris as well as the main character freak out of their wits.